Okay, so here's a quick overview of the outreach process and how I approach this. So you may be able to sell to a lot of different job titles, and so we would want to define the buyer persona. And each job title is going to be a little bit of a different buyer persona because they have a little bit of a different challenge and slightly different foci and pain points within their organizations. And then I wrote Venn diagram here because we want to look at the overlap of their current pain points or challenges and then the recency of the events within their business or within their industry or vertical, like new cyber threats, for example, right? Or recent changes in the company, mergers and acquisitions, different things like that. Basically, recency based trigger points. And then where does that overlap with the solution or fit that we are going to reach out to these folks with, right? And so this is kind of the Venn diagram overlap of what we're looking at here when we're defining the ideal customer profile. From there, we need to build a list. Once we've nailed the buyer personas, we build a list of them, and we have various different software and tools that we can utilize for this process. You've probably heard of a lot of these: Apollo, Clay, Sales Navigator, or custom directories that we can scrape as well. Once we have that list, we want to enrich the list because we're not just going to reach out based upon the email alone and the company name, but we also can have enrich the list with emails, like work emails instead of personal, tech stack, like what's the tech stack the company uses, company info, specifics like what do they sell, what's the deliverable, the product, the service, right? Who are they selling to? Who is their ICP? What is their current tech stack? What is their current focus? What industry events are going on, right? What sort of regulatory pressures are they facing right now, or threats? Like in a SWOT analysis, like could be industry related threats from the outside, competitors. It could be cyber threats, et cetera, et cetera. And essentially, we want to take all this information and enrich our list with it. And then so what we end up with is a very thoroughly enriched list with a plethora of data that's relevant to the prospects that we're reaching out to, these specific buyer personas that we mentioned before, with data points that we can mention and leverage in our messaging. And I'm going to get into the messaging strategy in a moment as well. And so that leads us to tailoring each message for each prospect. So now we have a nice list. It's very rich and enriched, and it's segmented by buyer persona. So we have multiple different lists for each buyer persona, by the way. We want to basically tailor the message for each prospect at scale. And so there's a couple different factors that go into this. And so how I think of it is what they do, as we mentioned before, understanding what they're selling, who they're selling to, what their tech stack might be, for example, as well as what they do in terms of as a buyer persona, as in the role, the job role within the company, right? Then company, what does the company do? What do they sell, right? And then a very important question that really has to be answered. And it's this one: why you and why now? Effective prospect messaging answers the question, why you and why now? But that's essential, and that leads us back to understanding and having collected all those data points. It helps us answer these questions here. This creates for very relevant, personalized messaging and outreach, which is sorely lacking. I would say 90% of outreaches that happen. Although there's tools to do effective outreach nowadays, it's not nearly saturated in terms of the market and how people are communicating B2B wise. People are not really utilizing them to the maximum effect, which is why people say things like, oh, well, we tried outreach, it didn't work. Well, you probably didn't do it right. So we leverage all these data points that we collected before, right, to answer these two questions, right? Why you, why now? We leverage also what their business does, because me personally, when I get an outreach message, it's not that I hate outreach messages. You know, a lot of people say like, I hate getting messages from people. I don't hate getting messages from people that I don't know if it's relevant. Like, for example, if they reach out and say, hey, I noticed this is what you do. And, I don't know if this is exactly your case or if this applies to you or not, but we're seeing these challenges and pain points that are relevant, of course, to what I do because they have the data points and they researched it. So what I'm saying is relevant, personalized outreach works every time. That's the gist of it there. So what does it actually look like? So we've got Jeff Chow here at Miro, CTO. His experience looks like this. So he's at Miro now, but he was at Advisor before, or Envision and Advisor, and Trust Advisor or Trip Advisor, which is down here. It's got cut off, but that's his experience. Envision, Trip Advisor. So in this case, we're reaching out about a platform as a service solution. So starts with, hey, I can imagine you've probably dealt with some pretty complex cloud setups at Envision and TripAdvisor. Is Miro's current environment, that means development environment, hitting the efficiency mark? Scaling infrastructure is tough for many collaboration platforms. We help teams instantly clone environments and streamline multi-app projects. The result is lower cost, faster launches, and more time to focus on innovation. Given your product chops, I think you'd appreciate how we're helping dev teams ship faster. Interested in a free assessment? So I don't know your level of awareness of this particular niche and industry, but let me break it down for you just in case you're in a different industry. Basically, we're just saying, hey, here, I know your experience and what you're focused on professionally. So I've done my homework. So this is, by the way, the first line. So it's like, boom, immediate relevance. Okay, this is not a mass blast email. Okay, great. I'm gonna continue. So is Miro currently facing efficiency challenges with your development environment? That's essentially what this is saying. Now, this is all written in a sort of like Silicon Valley, like shorthand, if you will. So don't mind that if you're like from the UK and you're like, what does this mean? Why is it written this way? It's kind of very Americanized West Coast, but it applies here for platform as a service, or those moving from infrastructure as a service to platform. They would get this kind of lingo. And that's important too, matching the language of your target audience. So moving on, scaling infrastructure is tough for many collaboration platforms, right? So Miro is a collaboration platform, and they need to scale their infrastructure. Sometimes hard to do. Can be very complicated. And we help teams instantly clone environments and streamline multi-app projects. This is the unique value proposition, and essentially the value proposition, and then following up with the end desired results and benefits. Lower costs, faster launches, more time to focus on innovation. That's exactly what CTOs want. These type of CTOs, at least. Giving your product chops, so harkening back to, once again, we've done our homework, referring back to the relevance. I think you would appreciate how we're helping dev teams ship faster. That's what CTOs want. They want their teams to be able to ship faster because they don't want to be late, right? It reflects badly on them. So that's the type of messaging that we can then create. And this is by no means the absolute best we can do. We can get a lot more nuance with this. We can get a lot more creative with this potentially as well. Change the tonality of this as well. This is not a locked in, this is not like Chat GPT language that's like fixed or anything like that. It can definitely be malleable and adapted. For example, I just did a campaign to Swedish manufacturers written in Swedish in their polite diplomatic Swedish style, if you will, of communication. So there's many different ways to skin this cat, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the process, so to speak, and what we take our campaigns through, and each of them and how they sort of turn out. So hopefully it's been insightful, helpful, and it's been Travis. Thanks so much, and until next time, bye-bye.